Hello, everybody. Larry Young here again with another segment of OLaMan Living Life with Purity. Back in the studio here with our good friend Alex Fiato. And today I want to start things off with talking a little bit about our current Pope Francis and some of the things that have been in the news as of late. And one of the things that concerned me greatly last month was when Pope Francis said that, I don't know where he was, over in the Eastern Orient or something like that, but he was talking about world religions, and he said all religions lead to God. Basically like putting everything on equal parity and, the same shelf type of stuff. And that kind of concerned me because, I do, and I think a lot of the world does, they look at the Pope as being the chief ambassador for the brand of the Catholic Church. And I think that was totally missed in that instance. He could said there's good qualities, but I don't think you do much for your own product, if that's what you want to call it, by kind of like downgrading it a little bit, which I don't mean to, put Catholics above or beyond anything, but that's what your job is kind of
to promote the Catholic brand.
Yeah, you're the Catholic Pope. You're not the
right.
Protestant.
That's right.
Pope. Or,
absolutely right. Well, there was one thing that you said, I think that upstairs, if you would repeat it, of the spinning of the sun, and you happen to have, there was a Jewish group up at the...
Oh, about the...
Yeah, repeat that story, because this goes to that, about religion as opposed to individuals. And tell that story about that.
Yeah, it's not about your religion. It's about your individual capacity and your response. Well, I used to have a soccer camp that we ran. It was called Blue Chip USA, and that was done at the facility. It used to be Sylvan Springs, which is now the Patroness of America Center, or whatever they're calling it. And running these soccer camps there, I had kids in from all throughout the Midwest with the Olympic Development Program. And at this one event, we had a bunch of girls in picking their teams, and they were under the age of 13. I remember that. So the girls were kind of fun and, gathering intelligence and had a lot of energy. And one night I was at the dining room, kind of watching how the mess hall was going. And these three girls came up to me, and they said, Mr. Young, we know this place has a lot of Catholic history to it, but we're not Catholic, we're Jews. And I go, okay, yeah, so is he, so is she.
Right, he had something going into the game.
Yeah, so is he, so is she. And they're not really getting the joke from me, but I said, so what's going on? She says, well, we're up on the hill, and the sun is moving all over the place.
Oh, my God.
And, I said, well, what do you mean it's moving all over the place? She says, well, it's like it's here and then it's there, you know. And they're just like, and I know exactly what's going on, but I'm not trying to act like this is something I'm going to get all excited about. You got to prove it to me a little bit. But the girls are really cute, but they were really excited. And I said, that's really interesting. I said, I'm really glad you saw that and took notice of that. I said, not everybody does. And I said, what do you think that means? And they looked at me and they says, well, we think God might be trying to talk to us. And I said,
wow.
Yeah, I think you might be right there. I said, but I think maybe God wants you to talk to him.
Wow.
And their eyes just got all, big and like, big
that's
saucers.
A beautiful story.
And they just go, yeah. And they took off back out to the hill.
To see what God, right, how they could talk to God. And you said this time again, it's not a Catholic thing. And,
no.
And just because we're presenting the Catholic model of the faith and what have you.
Right.
It's universal. This is God talking to everybody.
Yeah, what's your response? Do you hear me? I'm calling,
Well, to me, that's a miracle. That's a miracle for them to notice it.
I think it's a naturalness.
Yeah.
I mean, but I think it's
innocence.
These girls are just being like purely natural, and they're responding.
The parents probably went berserk on you, right? Because...
Well, okay, okay. The backstory. Okay, so 3 days later, okay, the camp is over, and the parents are coming to get, and one of the parents came up to me. It was a woman, and her daughter was one of the 3 girls. And she says, "You're Mr. Young." I said, "Yes." And she goes, "I want to talk to you about what my daughter and her friends saw." And I go, "Oh, the 3 girls?" And she goes, "Yes." And she says, "Does that happen a lot?" And I said, "It happens enough."
Right.
And she goes, "I'm going to go out there right now."
Really?
So this mom,
she saw the same thing?
Well, the daughter was talking to her about it the whole time. So apparently these girls have been watching the sun spin the whole time they were there. And even when they were out on the soccer pitches, they were distracted by this. But I think it's just so cool because I think it's natural. And I get kind of, not upset, but I get a little surprised a lot of times when other people that say they can't see it.
Right.
Because to me, it's just like one of the more natural
things to view. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like if there's a question in my mind, or it's been a frustrating day, but a good day in that regard. With the troubles that come your way. Many times I'll be able to sit out on my porch and I can watch the sun as it's lowering in the sky and. They're just spinning away. Yeah. And anyone who's been to Rome City or was with me back in the day and watched it, it's quite something to see.
So I think that is Larry or I comment on particular religions or things that we're going to discuss that are extremely sensitive. We're not trying to say that we know it all. What we do know is that God works individually with people regardless of the religion they're in. The other thing we know, there's certain aspects of certain religions that are built up for destruction of other religions. So we're gonna, when we talk about these things, and we talk about it in the context of social, political, Adolf Hitler was Catholic, right? Wasn't a good Catholic, and see what he did, right? So as we talk about this Pope Francis, we're going to present to you what's come across our desk. Things that we've read that our Blessed Mother's written, things in Scripture. We're neither for nor against. What we're for are individual people that would love God and that would see the sun spinning and have enough courage to come to somebody and discuss it, because what a beautiful miracle that was for these kids.
These girls were just like so vulnerable in that moment, but because to sit there and say that.
No, that's unbelievable for them to approach you and to get that. But you've had so many of those experiences that I think that has given you some basis for tolerating the insanity that has come at you vis-a-vis lawsuits, going to court, all the
little things, as we like to call it, the little stuff.
Something that says, Larry, just keep going, you know what I mean? But this thing about Pope Francis, and he had mentioned about the Muslims going into Europe and eventually...
Yeah, that was more recent. That was just this last week. He was saying that the Muslims have infiltrated Europe, and it's just basically a matter of time before they take it over. And the alarm buttons didn't need to be pushed on me; they went off automatically.
Absolutely,
on that one.
Absolutely.
What the heck? If you're supposed to be the chief ambassador for the Catholic Church out here, and you're saying that Europe is being taken over by Muslims, and they'll, the Catholic, well, if that happens, by way of their charter and their own mission statement, that means the running out of Christians.
Absolutely.
Of which Catholics are a part of that, as are Lutherans.
If you get overtaken by any group of people, you forfeit your culture.
Well, it's...
And your life.
Well, and your life, quite possibly. I think, your culture becomes secondary when there's a sword of, possibilities hanging right there, and they mean it. Because they don't have any regard for you. They've been trained for this. And we were talking about, there's good Muslims up there, and all like that. Yeah, there's nice, passive, peaceful.
Individual people want to
right.
take care of their families.
Yeah, and
that are not political.
Just like there's Christians that don't go to church.
Right.
There's a whole spectrum.
And every religion, every group.
I didn't mean to tell on anybody, but I'm just, letting it be said. But, to comment on something like that as being the main world leader you are on the basis of, how people look to, I would say, used to be, if anything happened in the world on a major level, the news media went to two people right away, the President of the United States and the Pope.
Yes, absolutely. Right.
Now, I don't think they do either.
Right.
It's like, what happened?
A toss-up here for that, right.
The lack of relevance hit us all of a sudden. But maybe they played their way into that position and nobody really respects them that much anymore.
Well, I think we're at that point that a lot of them can't discern between the real article and a fake article. That's because individually they're disinterested. They don't care.
Well, they don't think it's concrete. They think it's movable. The goalpost.
So it's relative. You can move it any way
right.
you want, and it's still everything is the same. When Larry had talked about this, I wanted to take a look at, because I had mentioned before, the Muslim religion I think began around 600, and I talked about the Blessed Mother talking about the matrix of that particular religion, and what its intent was.
Now, this is in the mystical city.
This is in the mystical city, yeah. And I wanted to know, when did she bring this up? When did she bring up the Muslim religion? She also brought up some of the heresies in the Catholic Church. A heresy is that the dogma is changed just enough that it does not represent the Catholic teachings. And there's been many heresies. I listed a couple of them, and we can go through them a little bit later. And I did want to read 3 paragraphs, but maybe one at a time, and have some discussions. What I found is that the Blessed Mother came up with about 4 major areas, and one was the heresy, or she called it Mohamed, and it's an Arabic meaning being of praise. And Mohamed is also is equal to Muhammad, which is Muhammad was the starter or the beginning of the Muslim religion. And then what concerned me was that Our Lady had described that particular religion is mainly being handpicked by very dark forces for the destruction of Judeo and Christian teachings. And then the religion itself. I'm not saying that all the Muslim people are under that particular umbrella of the religion necessarily go along with this. But I will tell you this: if they were to voice their opposition to the extremists, they themselves would be in harm's way. But I wanted to know, where did she bring this up in her dissertation of Holy Scripture as she begins to instruct on Holy Scripture? And she brings it up after the crucifixion and the transfixion on page 691. And she brings it up in terms of Lucifer finally understands that God has accomplished the victory over death through his suffering. And it is at that point that the demons and Lucifer, who is now called Satan because he's not the bearer of the light, is thrown into hell. And within hell, there's a council. In the council, they begin to say, what can we do? We can no longer destroy Christ or overthrow his kingdom. But what we can do is we can destroy the human race. And so he asked the demons, give me your counsel and tell me what we can do to further the destruction of the human race. And let me read this and we can discuss. I'll get your opinion on it. It says, so they were called, and he asked, and he desired the opinions of those dark entities, the fallen angels, and some of the principal demons gave their answer to this dreadful proposal, encouraging Lucifer by suggesting diverse schemes for hindering the fruit of getting diverse of redemption among men. They all agreed that it was not possible to injure the person of Christ, to diminish the immense value of his merits or to destroy the efficacy of the sacraments, to falsify or to abolish his doctrine, which Christ had preached. Yet they resolved that, in accordance with the new order of assistance and favor established by God for the salvation of men, they should now seek new ways of hindering and preventing the work of God by so much the greater deceits and temptations. In reference to much of the greater deceits and temptations, in reference to these plans, some of the astute and more malicious demons said, "It is true that men now have at their disposal a new and very powerful doctrine and law, and efficacious sacraments, and a new model of instruction of virtues, a powerful intercessor and advocate of this woman, the Blessed Mother. Yet the natural inclinations and passions of the flesh remain just the same. The sensible and delectable creatures have not changed their nature. Let us then, making use of this situation with increased astuteness, foil as far as us lies in the effects in this God-man who wrought for men, let us begin strenuous warfare against mankind by suggesting new attractions, exciting them to follow their passions and forgetfulness of everything else. Thus men being taken up with these dangerous things cannot attend to the contrary."
What would kind of fulfill that sort of prognostication, if you will?
Well, you've mentioned a lot of them
I can think of one
throughout this whole podcast. I mean,
I think the porn is really kind of what they're talking
well,
about.
you were
right
talking,
there.
sure, absolutely, because it's the flesh.
It hits every button in there and talk about, people, and it's not just, well, they say the word man in there, but it's women too.
Absolutely, yeah.
Are so fascinated by this
Right.
stuff that's going on in this fantasy porn and stuff like that, and then they're acting it out, and with no relationship whatsoever.
No, it's really kind of devastating, very, very
I
costly.
mean, it's so impersonal and it's so
unfulfilling.
well. I think it probably takes a cut out of the person's emotional bag every time then too.
Absolutely.
And what it's doing to where they can't have any kind of committed relationship. They wouldn't know where it even begins because they've been in this. But to be talking about that at that time and for having this, basically be coming true, in this day and age right now with everything sort of like coming together at the same time.
Yeah, even worse now than before because you have all this media, you have access to all kind of illicit. I mean, they've got websites where people are murdered in sexual acts that
snuff films.
Yeah, snuff films.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and
you're talking about the kids now with this child trafficking.
Who knows where they're at? They're missing 300,000.
Can you imagine the innocents being degraded by these horrifying monsters? That
who knows what's going on with them or where they are. This is just unconscionable stuff that's been going on, and for why, no one's ever really going to admit to, but it's all about power, and why are they sending, these immigrant trains of people, they want to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. That means you take a little bit of everything to get it all together. But that's not what they're doing when they're settling these people. They're sending them by great numbers, tens of thousands,
who knows where,
into one smaller area, so they become a dominant force inside that community. And they can have their own culture and not have this diversity, equity, inclusion that they talk about. It's one of the most racist things that you could be doing to people.
Imagine that.
Right. What kind of a chance does that give these new immigrants if they're not going to, become more of an emulsification?
No, absolutely, because when the Italians came here, they had to have a sponsor. They had to know where you're going, who's going to be housing you, and of course they live families.
And they had their burrows, but
sure,
they kind of naturally grouped together.
3 or 4 families being one house.
And I understand some of that, but that happened naturally.
That happened naturally.
Right.
And you had to apply, and you had to come here.
Yeah, but here the government's doing it.
Well, they're just letting them in. Normally,
they're positioning it, 20,000. I'm talking about Springfield, Ohio.
certain people to go in to destroy those communities is what they're
Well,
doing.
they sent 20,000 people into 50,000 person community.
Well, then you're going to destroy that fabric of that culture.
Oh, everything got destroyed.
Everything.
Yeah, all their economic.
Well, was that
structure.
done by design, Larry? Are they wanting to destroy these things? I mean, what would be their purpose for? Normally, if you're going to let 20 million people into the United States, you have to have General Patton with the third.
Well, normally
neutralize.
Normally, there's a war going on with this great
then
migration.
you send the people in.
Well, typically, large migrations of populations happen during war. There's natural border.
Sure, under
causes.
the cover. Yeah, that's right. Sure, the borders are breached, and
that's a normal thing to do. This what's been happening at the southern border, and there's been a lot been coming across the Canadian border too. So
what's your sense of? Is this trying to dismantle the United States, and what other reasons?
they're trying to take these people, put them into voting areas where they can command and take over control of a certain district. Get an extra congressperson allocated. It's all gerrymandering with these little pawns.
But wouldn't the chaos and the vying for the power by these external forces overshadow the capacity for their votes? When at some point are they going to take the place over and say, you're going to have 20 Muslims being elected because that's the place.
Well, it become like Dearborn, Michigan, and I'm not opposed if people want to congregate together and live that way, fine. But try to integrate yourself into the common.
Yeah, you can't.
Thread
That's integrate
of the community.
That's right.
Become an American,
that's
and
right.
not a Somali living on U.S. soil.
You got it right.
The subsidies and things like that. When you come here, as I had investigated back when I was traveling. I said, well, what does it take to move to France? And they said, you have to apply, and you have to. We don't accept all of you stinky Americans. So. And I said, well, thank heavens for that.
I wanted to go.
Thank God somebody's got standards.
Yeah, the French.
So, but no, you can't just do this. You'd have to go and be sponsored, making sure you've got income to support yourself. They don't have that kind of thing.
The Pope mentioned that you said that eventually Europe will be taken over.
Well, that's what he said this week. He says it's inevitable that Europe will be overrun with the Islams.
And so what's his intent in saying? Does he think
what's
that's
his
a
plan
good
of
thing,
action? What are we to do?
Well, he ought to do something, isn't he?
Take the old Bobby Knight philosophy on women getting raped, lay back and enjoy it.
Bobby said that?
Yeah. He says, well, if you're going to get raped, there's a lay back and enjoy it.
Well, Bobby, yeah, right.
Well, it was back at that time. It was better than getting your throat slashed. I think is what his comparison was.
Okay.
There have been some slashing going on or something.
No, he was a good guy.
Well, he was a guy, and but he was funny. He used to fish out here.
Did he?
Yeah.
Did you ever meet him?
No.
He came out here to fish.
Yeah, he would fish out in this bay. They would come out and fly fish out here. Larry Edwards would bring him out here to teach him how to fly fish. So our lady's talking about the concerns about the Muslims. The council in hell is coming up with a determined plan.
How can we now
it
counter?
Seems to be happening today.
Absolutely,
with their porn
more so now
and the
than
infatuation and what it does to our productivity. They speak about there because they won't. They're attending to that. They can't attend to their other duties. Which is like
absolutely right. Yeah, they'll be distracted and right.
It's like, but then you got along with the porn, you've got like the internet gambling.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can gamble on just about anything.
Yeah. Anything.
Just about.
And you get on there, and electronically you're exchanging money, and probably more often than not losing your money, but
it's still so prevalent. I mean, what with people with these addictions that are they're consuming. I think all addictions are pretty much consuming.
Absolutely.
Right? So this would be more of your specialty, but all of these are consuming of not only your time, but then also of your self-respect.
That's the biggest thing. Is that at the end of these
feeling for yourself.
Of course, at the end of these vices, whether it's consensual sex, but there's nothing, there's no love or there's no concern for the human being, or or commitment to the relationship or anything. I mean, nothing that simply, when you look at all these things, it has to end up leaving you with a sense of emptiness because there's no substance to what you're doing.
Right.
So why would we think, for that 1 second of whatever pleasure one gets, you're still in a room alone and you look at the person and she looks at you and you're still alone and you don't know why you interacted the way you did other than for focusing on the material.
A total physical trade-off, but there's no emotion. And as most people do understand with the gravity of time is that, the physical loses you, and then you need the emotion. You need that connection.
Correct, yeah. That's
because
right.
otherwise, what do you to dream about?
Right.
When you're not together, type of things. I mean, I'm not saying you're dreaming about the sex, but you're dreaming about that connection of being with your loved one.
Right.
So
let me. There's a couple other things. Acting upon this counsel, they redistributed the spheres of the work among themselves in order that each squadron of demons might, with a specialized astuteness, tempt men in different vices. And you went through a few of them.
No, I just think they're most prevalent ones today.
They resolved to continue to propagate idolatry in the world so that men might not come to the knowledge of the true God and redemption. Wherever idolatry would fail, they concluded to establish sects, S-E-C-T-S, heresies, for which they would select the most perverse and depraved of human race as a leader and the teachers of the error. So they handpicked, all right, Mohamed. Then there was concocted among these malignant spirits the sect of Mohamed, which is Mohamed, all right? And so she's mentioning this. She's trying to warn people. If you're in it, think about it. If you're outside of it, think about it, that the construct was being pushed and talked about in the councils of hell in the first year, 600 years before the Muslims. Mm-hmm. All right? Among these malignant spirits, a sect of Mohammed, heresies of Arius, Pelagius, and Nestorius, and wherever other heresies have been started in the world from the first ages of the church until now, together with those which they have in readiness, but which in neither are necessary nor proper to mention here. Lucifer showed himself content upon these infernal counsels, being opposed to the divine truth and the destructiveness and the very foundation of man's rescue, mainly divine faith. He lavishes and he flattered praise and high offices upon those demons who showed themselves willing and who would undertake and to find impious originators of these errors. So they're serious about, because they can't destroy God or Christ or his mother, now their main focus is to destroy the human race. And we right now are at the apex of this battle. And we're being forewarned on it. But, I mean, this again, for the audience's purposes, heresies mean, in the Catholic Church, it means that they've changed something significantly, either added or detract from what the teachings are. So like the heresy of Arius, Christ was not truly divine, but a created being. So what does that mean?
That was about the year 300 or so he was saying that?
The church was going goofy in the year 300. A guy by the name of... Huh?
There was a lot of arguing, going on.
Yeah, they're trying to redefine Christ. If you read the Apostles' Creed, he tells you, conceived of the Holy Spirit, born of the Virgin Mary. Mm-hmm. So if you're conceived by the Holy Spirit, you're not being made. That's why they say begotten. It means, yeah. So they're saying, no, he was like anybody else. He was holy man, but he was, wasn't really the big kahuna. Well, he's the third person of the Holy Trinity. Even God the Father said he's equal to me. He's my son. And Jesus would say, oh, I love my Father. My Father, what would you have me to do? And it's like God thinking within themselves in personality. All one, but three persons. And so that heresy was, Christ is not truly divine, but created. Pelagius, he was in, I don't know what year, the free will of humans can achieve salvation through its own efforts. I mean, at my age, you barely can wipe yourself behind you. Like he's mentioned it to me from time to time. But I mean, we can't save ourselves. I mean, look, we're deteriorating as we speak. We're in the final approach to.
Well, this is where you're your own God, type of thing.
This is where you're your own God.
That's a celebrity feeling.
Well, we talked about some of the singers, and so how could this particular singer get caught up into, their singing and they don't mention God. Thank God he gave me the vocal cords that I have. You know what I mean?
Well, they get so caught up in their industry, and they become the key to all these people. A lot of pressure on them, and they don't see themselves as anything else, and they become lonely that way. Then they become disaffected. That's why I say they need a good hobby.
Sure, something that
distracts
grounds
them, takes them out.
Even coming out here and fishing. I mean, Bobby Knight must have found that extremely replenishing of his spirit and soul, and catching fish, and without throwing chairs.
I don't know. I just heard stories. I didn't see it.
I didn't see it. So in other words, our Lord, Our Lady is warning that what they're going to do is destroy the fabric of the faith. They're going to change something. And so Larry was saying, this current Pope was saying, any religion can...
He said all religions lead to God. So it's basically, in the way he was saying it, at sort of like a world conference, it was like, hey, we're all cool. Hey, come on in. Hey, bro, I'm with you. You with me. All right. Hey, let's be cool,
Right.
So that's a Polish one. I don't know what...
Well, so the question is then, why would the Catholic Church or the church that Christ established mean anything if anything else can mean?
Well, is it not special in his own regard? If you're the chief ambassador for the brand, don't you find your product
Better than the other guys?
Well, or somewhere
superior
or exclusive in some regard.
Somewhere along.
I mean, you got to have your definition, your defining moment. What's my difference?
Right.
Why this versus
So
that?
he's really not declaring himself for the preservation of the brand.
He wasn't advocating. He was basically, hey, bro, type of stuff. Yeah. Which that's being a politician. That's not being.
Yeah. We've talked about this, and I think, and I asked Larry, why would God go from person to person? Finally, it dawned on me. He does that because that's where the true faith is. That's where the love is in the individual person. And now you used to call them, or you called them hokey pokey, or the.
Well, people play the spiritual hokey pokey.
Hokey pokey.
Rather than living it, they think if they do this certain series of acts, that something's going to come. 9-day novena is a great practice in faith development and things like that, but there's no guarantee that anything's going to happen. And to have an expectation of that is really kind of losing, the hope and the miracle of answered prayer.
So there's a beautiful thing like with those girls. So, well, maybe God wants you to talk to him, and they got excited.
Yeah.
There's the invitation.
Yeah.
And they ran right away up to
right.
So there's the miracle. That's the real religion, is the religion of the excitement and the desire to know God, to love, and to serve him.
But it's a natural miracle.
It's
because
natural.
it was within them the whole time. And they were just all behaving naturally. And for this girl then to be calling her mom and telling her that was the best part of their camp.
Unbelievable.
The mom wants to go up there then too.
Right.
Another Jewish mother.
No, but I'm surprised.
I got a great record with Jews.
You really do. The stick, the guy with the stick, the Jew on the stick. I mean,
the Jew on the stick one.
It's really amazing. But you had gotten some locutions about the destruction of Israel and early on.
Well, yeah, that their nations were rising up to try to destroy Israel. That was back in 2001.
It's happening now, though, isn't it?
Well, and at the time when they finally published the letter Michael Brown did on Spirit Daily, back in 2001. He did it after the 9/11 because he was thinking that the message had to do with that. As I said, no. I said, it's way bigger than 9/11, than what happened there. And he's like, oh, no, it was so prescient. And I said, no, I said, it's far bigger than 9/11. I mean, 3,000 people perishing, that was terrible. But this is far worse.
Yeah. A lot on the line.
A lot on the line.
So I'm going to read this last paragraph, food for thought. And it says, some of the devils charge themselves with perverting the inclinations of children at their conception. This is how bad it gets. At birth, others to induce parents to be negligent in the education and instruction of their children. You had mentioned something about perhaps the parents need to educate their own children. There's something about education that you had a...
Well, I think that Our Lady's impressed upon me very strongly to get your children out of the public school system and even some of the private schools, because a lot of times your private school teachers are just the ones that couldn't make it into the public school system.
Okay.
You know, and they're working many times at a lower wage and
Right.
compensation.
You're saying they're not getting the cream of the crop.
Typically not.
Right.
You know, they take what they get, and sometimes they get people who are spiritually feeling obligated, and that's great. But are you really getting the best candidate for your kids?
For your kids.
And I think a lot of people are finding good success with their homeschooling right now. And I think what needs to come next in the development of the homeschooling effort is networking, so that somebody who wants to be in a homeschool might join a pod.
Okay, so
Other
sure, that makes sense. Yeah.
Homeschoolers, so they're not so on their own. They have their own
Sure, that makes sense.
teaching, but then they can have group
Absolutely,
teaching,
yeah.
and then group learning from even the parents or the leaders of these pods. I mean, these are very talented people in their own right.
They have different
They all know
skills. They bring
something
different. Sure.
exactly. You know, like maybe they cook, maybe they do something else, but all these skills and all these different things can be passed on to the kids. You know, and I remember when I was in 7th and 8th grade, we would have elective classes we could take, and I took a cooking class, and just because I was good at cooking already, and I just wanted to see what else I could learn to do. Boy, it was great. It was great.
Yeah, you made a good dinner tonight for us.
Well, that all came out of rudimentary learning.
Basic.
That. But it was a life skill I took with me, and I've actually earned money doing it and cook for large groups, small groups, all sorts of things. Cook with you,
Yeah.
which is a great privilege. But there's just been all sorts of things that I learned.
Come out of that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And this could be done. I talk with so many other guys who are business owners, and we talk about, how spending time in college, for a lot of these guys is just a waste of time. It just delayed their success.
Right.
And
Yeah, Elon Musk said that. I think he said that too. He said,
it
really,
could very well
college
be.
it was.
Well, the one fellow has a great heating and air conditioning business, and he says, I learned everything I needed to learn by 8th grade. I really didn't even go to high school. He says, I knew everything I needed to know. All I had to do was just get out there and start doing it. He said, I just went right into work right out of high school. He says, but high school for me was kind of a waste of time.
Yeah. Yeah, they're aware of what they want to do, where they're going. They're
Well,
aware
and
of it.
we went to a different kind of, I think, Catholic grade school. It taught a great range of things. The sisters did. I think these gals are pretty smart, and we got a wide range of things that came at us. Not always top flight, but we all got a taste of something.
Okay.
And I think, and they taught us, I think, how to learn, how to take your interest in something, and then how do you follow up on that and learn.
Which is more important, right?
Yeah,
at that stage.
that's the best part of an education, is knowing how to learn.
Right.
Because you got to continue to keep learning.
Right.
All throughout your life. Even my mother at 98, the other day, she's saying, says, I just learned something new today.
Wow.
Can't remember what it was.
Yeah,
but
it was new.
but it was something new to her. And I said, "Wow, newfound knowledge." She goes, "Yep." She says, "Well, we all drop dead in an hour." And I
God
said,
bless
"No,
her. Yeah.
she needs prayer. She's a little sick this week, so we're hoping that she gets comfortable here. Little flu going around, I think." So, anything more on the?
Yeah, just
the
a little
Muslims?
bit. Yeah, it said to induce the parents to be negligent in the education and the instruction of their children, either through inordinate love or aversion, and to cause a hatred of parents among the children. Some offered to create hatred between husbands and wives. The specialist demons to how to, stir the pot, to place them in the way of adultery, or to think little of the fidelity promised in their conjugal partners. All agreed to sow among men the seeds of discord, hatred, vengeance, proud, sensual thoughts, desire of riches and honors, by suggesting sophisticated reasons against all the virtues that Christ has taught. Above all, they intended the virtues to weaken the remembrance of the passion and the death and the resurrection, of the means of salvation, of the eternal pains of hell. By these means, the demons hope to burden all the powers and the faculties of men with solicitude for earthly affairs, sensual pleasures, leaving them little time for spiritual thoughts and their own salvation. So they have a plan, what our weaknesses are, and they even said, even in the conception in the womb of the mother, there are demonic forces that are specialists in how to look at the humor and how to instigate with the parents, or how to upset whatever they do in terms of setting the, because the most secure place on the planet is, in the very beginning, is in the womb of the mother. And so what if they upset the mother, and there's a great deal of stress, and all of these things converge on the human.
Well, you were talking about that earlier today with your own daughter, yeah.
So, but at any rate, it's they don't go to sleep. They're up 24 hours a day figuring out how, they want to destroy us. And in the future, we're going to talk a little bit about the complexity of the dogma of hell, and we're going to be taking a look at some of the people that have had firsthand experiences in hell to talk about, because as we sit here today, I can assure you, from what has come across my desk, there's no doubt in my mind, simultaneously, deep in the earth, is the most horrific set of events that's occurring with human souls in the dungeons of darkness and perdition. So it's God is here for us. The main thing is we need to get to know God, to love him, and then to find out how he wants us to be of service to him. But we just can't say it's in God's hands.
No, because these are God's hands. God gave us hands to be his hands here. We don't make God's decisions for him. But when there's work to be done, that's what these are for.
Come through me, Lord, if I can do it right.
You're a vessel.
So when they say it's in God's hands, they don't want to do anything.
Well, that's usually, I think, a big cop out. I mean, there's certain
it's the
things
hokey-pokey
when it's beyond the capacity for these things to do anything.
Right.
Then I could say, well, it's up to God. I think that usually comes with, times of death and passing, which is a beautiful, event then too. And I talk about how natural that is and how it's nothing to be afraid of. It's something to be.
You're not afraid at all of dying, are you?
No. Nope. I am okay with it. I think it's, from what I've seen or experienced as far as heaven's light, it's that was enough for me.
It's really that magnificent. It's really that.
You can't even comprehend anything.
So you have no words to explain that.
It's just a feeling of you're complete. There's no weight anymore. It's just all agreement. It's all, I'm here,
Thank God.
Well, and
even that is it.
Thank you, and no, thank you, and it's like
okay.
Everything's just as you could just hope for. You know, it's good. I didn't see anybody, you know, but I don't know if we take on an actual physical form in heaven, or if it's just an awareness and a knowing.
Well, initially, from what I've read, it's the spirit is what's the soul. The spirit is what lives, and that.
But it has no physical form.
No, but then when we're resurrected and the body now is united, that'll be an interesting. But because we do know, I think Saint Joseph was
That'll
brought.
be a crowd.
Huh?
That'll be a crowd.
Yeah, yeah. But the Blessed Mother, body and soul, were it's called the Assumption.
She was assumed.
She was assumed into heaven. But I think Saint Joseph had that same gift that they brought him, body and soul.
Think so? Okay.
I think so. Yeah. We're also going to do a podcast on Saint Joseph, and I've got some of the documents, but Larry and I will discuss it and try to get some things going before we do that presentation. But I mean, there's so many things that God has left us with to present to you that are very exciting. And at any rate, the good Lord said that the mystical city of God will be the document for the church, the universal church, which means whoever loves God. This will be the document that will set us back on course in terms of understanding the dogmas and unveiling the truths and what have you. But I'm very thankful to have the opportunity to present some of these things. You know how lazy I can get.
I've noticed.
He says, "What? Are you back yet?" And I said, "Yeah, Larry. You know me. And he said, "Well, come on, let's get going on this thing." So we're gonna tomorrow. We're gonna do some more podcasting, and we got a lot of exciting things. And we're also gonna be doing a Bible code search on both Francis Bergoglio, quote unquote, Pope Francis, and I want to know a little bit more about Larry's part in the Bible, and I'm sure I'm going to find some.
It'll just say Larry who, what?
No, they won't. You're very special in God's
I don't
eyes,
think
and
so.
that you're a very special person. And I know you've been through a lot.
We'll find out.
Well,
I guess.
no, but when you see that,
I just hope it's not in the Book of Revelation.
Well, we'll see. It could be. I mean, you never know where it's going to come up because
that's New Testament.
Well, because you're on your mission. Bring me the children. The children are going to be put into play, I think, after the conversion of the world. Because conversion of the world doesn't mean that we know everything. It means that God, through His mercy, brings peace into the world. But we still don't. Who is God? Who is Jesus? And this is where those kids will be instructing. Whether it's through the Shroud of Turin
they just need to know. But we have so many kids nowadays have no idea of a relationship with Jesus. It's just a cartoon character to them.
Right.
You know, it's something like 40% are not baptized.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's a hideously high.
You're saying in the Roman Catholic Church, 40%?
No, I'm talking about the U.S. population.
Oh, the population of the United States.
Yeah. Baptism is not a common occurrence.
Used to be what percent high? 90% or what?
I don't know, but I never looked into it. But I just was amazed to find out that 40% are not. That's a lot of unattended souls.
Yeah, and you've talked about baptism. It's the beautiful story about you warn the kid, listen, you don't want to work here. You baptize them, you're going to get baptized, you're going to work here. It's because there's a lot of spiritual, fighting going on here. And I guess the kid did end up getting baptized, but the importance of it is.
Yeah, married, is having a good life, and happy for him. So,
we got anything else we want to discuss today?
Oh, we got a lot of stuff we want to discuss, but we got to keep these segments short. So we'll be getting back tomorrow on some more segments here. We'll have story time. Promise that. So I got some funny stories to tell.
Okay.
And so we're gonna have a good time tomorrow.
All right, sounds good, Larry.
All right. In the meantime. Check out the Mystical City of God if you haven't already. I think you can get it on Tan Books. You can get it off, I think, Amazon. eBay's probably got it too. It's a 4-volume edition. It usually runs between $100 to $150, depending on what type of version you get. But it's got some incredible stuff in there. So we want to make sure we're sourcing all of our, or noting all of our sources here for you, so people aren't thinking we're just making this stuff up. So.
Yeah, no. Anything we present, we'll have books and things you can read, and we want you to check on us and make sure that
give us a wellness check.
That we got to make sure he's not lying, because
you double checking, so fact checking. So, all right, we love you guys. We'll be back.